we have made it to the last technical session of the day. And after this, you can relax, you can have fun, and you can stop learning. To be fair, I'm going to be giving you a lot of information that you're going to want to write down, try and take in. If you don't pick up everything, that's fine. All of this is recorded. This isn't going to be the last Einstein GPT talk you see. Just let me tell you that much. And just sort of take in as much as you can. There are times we'll get technical, we'll keep it high level at some points, and I just kind of want to give you a realistic view of what this all looks like. Now, before we get started, I'm Stephan Chandler-Garcia. I see lots of familiar faces in the audience of people who I've known for quite some time, but I'm a developer advocate at Salesforce, and I look after a lot of our big strategic content, which is why I've been very close to Einstein GPT since its inception. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of new stuff today, so the forward-looking statement is very valid. Please make all of your purchasing decisions based off of our currently available products and not any of our future features or functionality that I'm going to be talking about today, which is pretty much everything. So, the Salesforce Customer 360, it's a marketing slide. We all know this. But what's really relevant here is that while some of you may only be familiar with the core Salesforce platform and CRM part of this, we have a vast ecosystem of customers who use products from throughout this stack, whether it be marketing, commerce, core platform, all of our industries. And what sits behind this is a lot of data and a massive platform that connects them all. Now, Salesforce as a company has been innovating for quite some time. Obviously, CRM in the cloud, who would think that would be a thing back in 1999? You can see here we've got things like Salesforce Mobile, we've got Web3, I won't talk about that, Slack, MuleSoft, all of these acquisitions and innovation that we've accomplished over the years. But what's right in the middle of this sort of graph? Einstein. Okay, AI is nothing new to Salesforce. We've been investing in this technology for quite some time now, and we're very early adopters and innovators around a lot of this technology. However, things have changed over time. So if we look back to 2016, the way that we talked about artificial intelligence as developers, as innovators, was very different to the way people are talking and thinking about it now. I was talking to a noob earlier today who actually said something that I hadn't known. And it was that when OpenAI were developing their new GPT stack, they were using a lot of research papers and ideas provided by Google, as well as Salesforce and our innovation and research team, to develop what you now know as tools and applications like ChatGPT. It's a space that we've been innovating in when it comes to applications like Prediction Builder, all of the image APIs, all of the language APIs, case classification. But there's been a huge shift in the way that we think about this technology as developers, as well as a company at Salesforce. And it starts out with the fact that a lot of these tools were API only. They were built for developers. And slowly, over time, all of them were shifted into Salesforce setup, into the UI, to make them accessible for everyone. I don't know if anyone here touched Einstein case classification right when it first came out. What you had to do was take a spreadsheet of case types and statuses, send that up to an API, and wait for it to calculate the result and spit out a prediction. Well, now that's all configured and set up. You go in, you map your case types, you set up your predictions, you run the model, and it's done. And the world is shifting to a place where AI is now accessible. And that's where we get to ChatGPT back in December. And it caught on like wildfire, because people were able to finally get their hands on some of this technology and see how it works for themselves. Now, what makes it different to that technology that we've all been working with since sort of 2016, 2017? Well, we like to think of that as sort of like the predictive era. AI was about being able to come up with a prediction based on a set of facts and establish a probability that something would occur. And that was using traditional neural networks. Now, what makes these very different from the foundational models that power these sort of large language libraries and models, large language models, is the number and the vast amount of data that you're bringing into them versus the traditional neural networks. So we're talking millions of parameters, data in Salesforce, your case history, versus the entire internet. The way that they're training these models is by pumping in billions and billions of parameters and data sets to try and come up with something. What is that something? Well, it's all about the sort of generative pre-trained transformers, or GPT, as we're all getting to know it and call it these days. And it does really three things. Number one, the big difference is, like I said, that massive increase in scale. Number two, the way that it trains itself is different. It's constantly evolving and it's constantly learning based on the way that you're interacting with it, based on the way that it's predicting results. And most importantly, it has a deeper understanding of how it's putting that information together. But don't be confused here. When you're using generative AI to generate images, to generate text, it's not intelligent per se. It's not a brain there thinking and coming up with brand new ideas. It's predicting the next word. Okay, it's predicting the next pixel. All it's doing is filling in the blank to what you're trying to do with it. Okay? That's something that's very important when we think about how this technology is applied, whether that be in your own companies, whether that be us at Salesforce. We're using it to generate text or content that is more than likely the correct thing based on the parameters that you give it. Now, this is fantastic. Companies were very scared of it for the first month in December, and then in January, everyone wanted to have it, and then they're scared of it again, they want it, but it's very difficult to implement. You have a lot of things to worry about, like whether or not the provider that you're using is using your data to train their models, whether or not your company can trust it, whether or not your customers trust it. And we as Salesforce want to do our best to create a layer between you and the technology so that you can trust it as a company, as a developer, and as a business. And the way we're doing that is by using prompts to really drive the way that you interact with these models. Now, when we talk about searching on Google, I can guarantee you that half of us or people in our lives still don't know how to properly use Google just to search for anything. I mean, most people don't know that if you put quotes around a word, it's going to return responses that include that word. Okay? There's a real knack to it. And the same thing occurs when you're interacting with something like ChatGPT or one of these LLMs. When you use prompts to drive these interactions, you can start to learn and templatize how you're communicating with them to get the response that you need or that your business needs. So for example, it's a classic scenario to ask ChatGPT to pretend you are blank. So a couple of days ago, I needed some fake data. So I said, pretend you're a Salesforce developer. You work for this fake company, Dreamhouse it is, in my example. Can you create me a list of 10 fake companies for me to upload into my Salesforce org? Great. Can you put that into an Apex class? Great. Can you make it execute anonymously so I can just go and upload a load of fake data into my org without having to do much work? It ended up taking a lot longer than I expected and hoped, but I was able to accomplish that by fine-tuning the way that I was talking to ChatGPT to get me the right information. And at Salesforce, we're powering our innovation with prompts. Okay? This is the goal. We want to make it easy for you as a company to build these prompts that you can then distribute throughout your organization and through your business. It starts out with templates, creating a way for us to allow you to manage and create those templates, grounding them with your customer data, masking them as they're sent over to a large language model, and then generating that response to bring back. Okay? It's a way for us to use existing technology and allow you to use the partners that you like and your company trusts while still allowing you to use your Salesforce data in a safe way here. And that's due to the Einstein trust layer that we're creating. The foundation of it is a secure gateway that you use to integrate with LLMs. We bring in our data retention policies, we have data masking, and we're even building in toxicity detection into the gateway so that when you're interacting with this gateway, you can ensure that you're setting yourself and your business up for safety and success before you start to distribute these tools to your customers. Now, this is a very new slide. I think you are all probably the first ones to see this, but this is how we're representing that trust architecture when it comes to how we use generative AI at Salesforce. Some of you may have seen a variation of this already around how we're using the technology. But really, it starts out with our core applications on platform, whether that be Salesforce Platform, Marketing Cloud, Commerce Cloud. We're going to be using that same gateway to power all of these applications. Okay, so you as a developer, as a builder, are going to have access to this gateway so that you can then start to use your data to generate responses, at least initially. What we will do is then ground that data based on the parameters that you pass into it, run it through that trust layer, through to the partners, and then feed those responses back to your users, okay? Keep in mind there is always a human in the loop in this process. We want to ensure that we're building applications for your users to interact with, but not for your customers. We're not working on things like case deflection or any automated processes because, like I said, we're just filling in the blank. Okay? We want to make sure that you have a chance to edit any content before it gets to your users. Okay, how is this going to work? Well, like I said with prompts. Okay, for example, if you take a prompt that says, hello, person, contact name, who works for this company, we will then take that prompt, ground it by passing in the data associated to that record, mask it, and then go through and let it communicate with one of our partners. Now, a crucial aspect of this is that we have a zero retention policy with all of the partners that we're working with. So if you decide that you want to work with OpenAI, if you want to work with Cohere, if you want to work with Anthropic, there's a zero retention policy in place. So you don't have to worry about retraining their models based on the information that you're sending over. We are masking it anyways, any PII, but when it comes to business information that you're using, there's a zero retention policy between us and those providers. So, who wants to see some of this in action? Okay, I have a request. There is an event on Monday called AI Day. Okay, it's going to be streamed on Salesforce Plus, and some of these demos will be presented for the first time there. So if you take any pictures today, share them on Monday. Don't be tagging Mark Benioff or anything, okay? So you're getting a real sneak peek at some of this content. But attend this. There's going to be loads of great information, lots of new content shared and streamed out live at a decent time for everyone, thankfully. But let's go back to a demo. So if any of you saw some of the content at Trailblazer DX, if you've read any of the blogs, anything on Einstein GPT already, you've already been exposed to this sidebar experience. The sidebar experience is cool, but it's uncontrollable in a way. Like I said, it's difficult for customers to interact with these models without prior knowledge. However, what we can do is start building out prompts and actions inside of the sidebar that allow us to fine-tune what is being asked and suggest responses. So for example, that prompt just said get top leads. Great, we can wire that up to the gateway and go and find and identify leads that meet that criteria. That's great. We can communicate this. We can ask it questions, whatever. What's important here is the prompt studio that sits behind it. Okay, the prompt studio is an application that we're building on Salesforce, initially for admins, eventually for power users, that will be able to allow them to fine-tune and create prompts and test them for distribution. So for example, if I wanted to go in and create a new prompt, I can create a new prompt for a specific surface, in this case for the sidebar, to populate fields for you or for email. Just for time purposes, I'm going to go ahead and edit one that I've already created. And what you'll see here is we'll select an email surface there. This prompt builder will allow you to access fields in relation to what you're trying to do with it. So for example, in this case, I'm sending an email to a lead or a contact. So I can then pull in any merge fields from the org, whether that be about the recipient, the sender, and any information there, and bring them into the prompt. And then on the fly, what we're going to do is run those through with a set of test data so that your customers can then receive personalized content in this case. We've got control over the language, the style, the persona of the person sending it, and even the provider. In this case, we've got OpenAI there. We can then search Salesforce for any related records that we want to send this information to and test on, and we can go ahead and run that. And what it's going to do is test this against the gateway. In this case, we're using 3.5 Turbo from OpenAI to go ahead and compose that content. If we don't like that, we can rate it. We can send feedback if something comes through that's harmful. We'll go ahead and say it was inappropriate. And we can tweak this as we go through. So for example, let's say I want to run this in French. I can go ahead and run that test again. And it's going to go through and do the same thing for us, except this time it should provide an email in French. Philippe, I don't know if this is correct. Good? OK, we're good. Great. You can then save this and then distribute it to your users. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and save this and go over to our Dreamhouse app, where we have a new email publisher. Okay, this email publisher will allow you to draft emails with Einstein GPT. So in this case, we can select one of those templates that we just created. I forget which one we did, so I'm going to go ahead and let's go back. I think it was the outreach email. It should be in French if that was that one. And it's going to go through, it's going to ground the prompt, and then create that for us. Okay, and so it's taken that prompt that we created for our users and exposed it to them in the email builder. Okay, this is just the first iteration, though, of the way that we're distributing prompts. Prompts are going to be able to be accessed via Apex, via Flows, via any of the cloud applications, email publisher, you name it. This is our foundation for building this out. So it's something to really start getting yourselves accustomed with. Keep in mind, this is V1 of the application. We are going to start putting this into pilot towards the end of the year, and it will slowly be rolled out for different applications from them. But you're going to see a lot of the prompt builder and these tools very soon. So it's worth getting those skills. We're also going to be exposing the gateway via Apex so that you'll be able to then send prompts to it directly in your code at your pace when you like to and use those responses where you like. So all of that is stuff that we're working on right now, very forward-looking, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea around the way that we're innovating at Salesforce with this technology to really try and be at the front of the line when it comes to distributing this stuff for customers. Okay, so like I said, AI Day, you all took pictures of that earlier, and you're all going to attend. Great, I saw some people registering over there a minute ago. Some resources. This talk, minus the demos, is on YouTube. Okay, it's already there. You can go if you want to learn any information, share it with your colleagues, it's there. We also have a trail mix on Trailhead around Einstein GPT, and there's a new series on Salesforce Plus coming called How to Dev. So if you have anyone who's interested in getting started with Salesforce development, learning more about the technology, and wanting to come into the ecosystem, we're launching that at the end of the month at World Tour in London. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll take Q&A on the side after the session. But enjoy the rest of London's calling. Thank you very much.